the intro music. Yeah! Woohoo!
Good afternoon / good evening, Star Trek Fleet Command fans, and today we're going to do what we did last month, which is show you what y'all thought about last month's features and what everything that came through, what you felt about it as a whole. We're going to go over the event store, which, by the way, reminder, final event store turn-in day is literally like as you're watching this video. If you haven't already, get them turned in. They've already extended it. No plans to extend it again. So, if you haven't already, go ahead and do your event store. But I want to get y'all's thoughts, and to be clear, I don't think that the surveys by themselves are a complete representation of all feedback, which is why we also look at YouTube comments, Discord, Facebook. Every now and then I'll peruse Reddit, but I'll be honest, Reddit's not really my thing. Mostly because, why are you so toxic, Reddit? Like, Reddit, why you got to be so toxic? Like, calm down. It's just a game. Good Lord. It's not just this game, by the way. Reddit in general is just not someplace I go very often. But anyway, we're going to talk about what y'all did. Now, FYI, for those who are curious how many responses, well, we had 1,500 people in this one before I wrapped it up right at around 48 hours. And considering the length of these surveys, the fact that we get 1,500 individual players to respond is fantastic. Now, I will shame the EU players just a little bit because I know a lot of y'all actually watch my content in the UK, mainland Europe, etc. And even if you're in a European server and aren't in Europe, maybe you're in, the UAE, or maybe you're somewhere, in that area. Either way, y'all need more representation. It shouldn't be 69% Americans, right? There's more out there than just us Americans. And then obviously APAC, I realize that y'all have far less servers than the EU and the US, but still, your representation matters, so do that. But anyway, let's talk about the officers and get into that because it's already right there. So we've got Neelix in the background, which I know I harped on so big. But this month, you had 2 officers come through that were actually pretty decent. Here's what y'all thought. And the truth is, y'all thought they were middling. And I think that's fair. It's probably about where I'm at. Not that they're bad officers by any means. They're just not like, oh, let's get super excited and go crazy and talk about all the love we should be hoisting on them. But at the same time, I'm not going to call, C grades bad. It's just meh. C, there's nothing wrong with C. C means that it applies to some people. It just isn't really that exciting, which is completely okay. I think that is okay for us to be at, where it's mostly C and there's some A's and B's thrown in there and then a few D's. Almost no F's, which is honestly probably the biggest point for me, is that the F to A to plus ratio is basically the same. So we love that. We love that if you enjoyed it that level. Obviously, Enterprise E Troy, had she remained how she originally was, would have been like an A plus type of month. Obviously, no sourcing there. Sourcing being a big deal of how we do our A plus. In fact, that's the entirety of how we do A plus sourcing. So I don't really understand how people could say A plus because there was no sourcing for these. But anyway, is what it is. But in terms of ability, application, obviously there's use there. And then here was Riker. His captain's ability is pretty useful when you're talking about just needing to get around in the game, especially if you're trying to speed up a lot of your runs. And then you have your critical hit chance right there. And we always love more critical hits. We always love crits. So definitely a unique build, but a additional build that is, I think, complementary to some of the other ones that we already have. But as you see, that y'all kind of gave it a mid-of-the-road grade. And I think that's completely fair. Will be nice to have is how that's kind of graded. So if you're curious, there is the numbers for that one. Let's move on to the next one here, which is going to be a little bit, get your squinters out. But this is going to be going over our overall features. Now, I have to include a lot of things in this because we had a lot of stuff this past month. So did they finish December strong? Well, a good way to kind of like get an idea of that is to take a look at everything as a whole. Now, feature grading, you'll see the responses will kind of vary because I only had a requirement on the first one. So everything else was optional to answer. But having wave defense here on the side, you see Section 31 and the Fleet Commander Sloan, very well received. The faction was definitely well received by a lot of free-to-play because it provided, even though it's a slow, it provided a free-to-play drip to currencies that are very difficult to get. That's the Dolomite, as well as a couple of other really nice things. I think overall, a lot of people really enjoy that. And the wave defense got much more positive results than I think a lot of people thought it would. And I'll be honest, going through the feedback comments, a lot of the negatives are based around the fact that there were stability issues. And I understand that. But as far as wave defense and the building go, it also got mostly positive to like middle of the road. But you can see there's definitely a chunk of frustrated people. There's a chunk there for a mixture of the stability and lag issues for wave defense, which are obviously a really big problem. And that is certainly not how we want to continue into 2024. Hint, Scopely. But Overall, it wasn't disliked, but as you can see by the big purple chunk, those were the failing grades, and those are the people that are frustrated. And I think they have a very legitimate reason to be. And this is all the type of stuff that we're going to take to the overlords and go over with them all of these numbers. And we're actually going to do this with the entire year as well, and we'll continue this project because I do think it's brought about more good than had it not existed. It's definitely not, coming and changing the world of Scopely, but I do think that all this type of feedback is good. And then Battle Simulator, well, what does it say about the Battle Simulator? That its F percentage is slightly higher than Wave Defense, but it also has right around the same A. I don't know. I think there's some people who hated that, and then there's some people who were indifferent, and the new players seem to like it. Fun fact about the Battle Simulator, my lower level players, in terms of the ones who did the survey, tended to side very favorably with the Battle Simulator, whereas higher levels were like, this is useless and I wanted something else. And honestly, whatever side of that you fell on, completely fair. I'm not going to gripe about it. I'm not going to get upset. You're allowed to feel that way, just like you're allowed to feel whatever way you want about Wave Defense, because you got a whole nother month of it. So yay. Thumbs up. I can tell there's not gonna be a lot of thumbs up for that. But if you do want to give a thumbs up, like the video. That's a thumbs up that we can all agree is deserved. All right, let's look at this next one. Let's talk about the event calendar. Now, again, same thing. I spread it out, so a lot of different options to choose from here. But the basic was, one, did you enjoy the month? Obvious answer, pretty much a yes, right? There's definitely some dislike there, but overall, you'll take C's, B's, and A's being the primary over D's and F. As players, we should definitely be happy about that. That's what we should prefer. We should definitely not want them to be having F grades. Then when you get here, did you get a significant or sufficient amount in the store? And the fact that the C option was a good amount, this is good. This is what we would prefer it to be. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean we ignore the D part of the pie, but we're really mostly looking at 75% happiness here. That's fantastic. So we want that. Was it as much as last Christmas? No, it wasn't. So I don't want to make it seem like I'm giving them, too many laurels or giving them too many flowers, as the common vernacular is these days amongst the kiddos. But we do want more months like this and less months like November, which November is kind of scary to show, but it was bad. Like it was very bad. It was scary bad. November is definitely not a month to show off. And yeah, that was rough. So then wrapping it up with the new event type and the event store. Now the event store got what I expected. Most people liking it, but missing key items, as you can see there. And just a reminder, go out and spend your event store currency. If you don't, you're going to get stuck with it. And yeah, it sucks getting stuck with that currency, because you doubt that they're going to rerun Thalerons anytime soon. And then the new event type was kind of hit or miss, but I wouldn't say it came back with negative reviews. In fact, a lot of people seem to like the exocomp-based events. So moving on then to communications. Now I changed up a little bit here because I left in some of the comments. Now keep in mind that almost 500 comments just for grading communications. So 1/3 of the players came through and had something to say about comments, whether it was something sarcastic like meh and what communication, or thought out answers. Either way, we accept all of them and we go through each individual comment. But 1/3 of the players came through and were like, yeah, communication. And that's crazy because this is actually a much better month, as you can see, than last month. Now, I've always said this. The people who are frustrated are far more likely to write in comments and a lot of times far more likely to participate in these type of surveys. So the fact that they swung up so well to a C grade is incredible, especially considering they just like completely dropped the ball on recent communications to start the year. And I made this meme. Had to mute the sound though. So if you want the sound version, go to my Discord. It's pretty funny. But I made a meme for it because the communication has been lacking again. And with the power of editing, you can watch it. You just can't hear it. Maybe with the music, it's much better. But communication is so hit or miss, right? And that was the biggest thing about last year. And we'll talk about that when we do our 2023 review. But communications and stability failed. And surprisingly, most players over the year were relatively happy with the content. That doesn't mean that there aren't too many loops. There are too many loops. Absolutely. But that doesn't mean that there wasn't great content. But a lot of that gets lost when your communication, and then finally, last but certainly not least, your stability scores are this poor. And yeah, that's 32% F and basically 35% D, which shockingly is actually better than November, because November was 42% F. So it actually got better, but it's still abysmally bad. Like there's not a single A vote, none, There's a few Bs. Those are gonna be a lot of the PC players like me. A few Cs, which are gonna be like sporadic Android players that don't have a problem. And then everybody else. I think the LL fits it perfectly. So, and again, by the way, if you're watching this video and you agree, disagree with any of these, please, feedback. I want to get as much as possible. Doesn't matter if you did the survey or didn't. I'm always looking for player feedback because I want this game to be great. I want this game to last forever. I want Star Trek to always be fantastic. So I'm always going to be pushing for that. But at the same time, if there's legitimate feedback, it needs to be heard. And now you can see that, yes, I would say that feature-wise, going by what y'all said, it took a step up. But it's really hard to say that you finished on a strong note when there was a big negative like this one. But as a whole, I would say that 2023 ended on a positive, which it needed to do. Now they have to keep their promise, which is quality over quantity in 2024. Will they? Well, you just have to wait and see, Star Trek Fleet Command, ladies and gentlemen. But if you have any comments, questions about this past year, which we'll do a recap of the entire year probably in a week or two, as soon as we get done with going through December's survey, which is, you saw the pie charts, but we actually have to go through all the comments. We have to go through all the numbers and create the mix of like who liked this and why. Once we have all of that done, we'll have a recap for 2023 video. We'll go some of the highs together, some of the lows. And yeah, I'm very interested to see what y'all have to say about that. But if you're a current player of the game, it did end on a high note. If you're a new player of the game, welcome. And I do think that the game as content has definitely gone in a good direction overall. But man, there are so many things they got to clean up, and stability, lag issues are at the top. But we'll see how things are this year. Live long and plunder. Stay safe, other Space Cowboys. Deuces. That's me. Catch you on the next Star Trek Fleet Command video, which is right here, your premier source for Star Trek Fleet Command information.
An even better outro than the intro. For the Empire and glory to your house.